About a year ago, I made a video talking about how I was finally, after many years, I was going to be quitting my job and staying home full time. So I figured let's give a 1 year update. What has it been like? Do I miss work? Do I want to go back to work? Do I love being a full-time stay-at-home mom, or is it just not for me? So I just want to be clear, this video is not just for stay-at-home moms. This is for working moms, homeschool moms. This is for any mom, because I've been in both situations. So I kind of just want to speak on both parts and just hopefully give some encouragement. I'm going to give a little bit of a backstory of like my working history and how I came to be where I'm at now. So when I was we're going way back. Just briefly, when I was about 18 years old, I had just graduated from high school. I needed a job. And so my dad's church and school, I was able to use the school's property and do a summer camp there. I was the main one in charge. I came up with the schedule and the registration and the events and all that. And then I had people, like real adults, helping to cover the hours and things like that. I worked all summer. And it was a great job. I loved it. But I came to the realization like, oh my goodness, these kids are here all day long. I see them more than their parents see them. By the time they get home, have dinner, take a bath, they need to be going to bed because they come here so early. And I felt so bad for the kids. And I just knew, I was like, if I can help it, I do not want my children to be in daycare. I want to make sure that I'm there, even if it's not full-time. I never really had aspirations of being a full-time mom, but I didn't know how it was going to work, but I was like, I don't want my kids in daycare. More on that in just a little bit. Fast forward, I graduate college, get my degree, start working. Pretty quickly after that, I have my oldest, who is Larissa. I was working full-time. The commute was like 45 minutes each way. I went back to work after she was like 7 weeks old. And it only took me a couple weeks of that to realize I do not want to work full time. I want to be part-time. So thankfully, the Lord worked it out. I don't even remember if I was praying much back at that point, but the Lord worked it out, and I was able to get a part-time job much closer that paid much better, that kind of compensated and almost made up for my full-time income. And that was great, and I loved it. And then about 16 months later, I had my second daughter, Alexia. And my husband at the time was a retail manager, so he was able to kind of adjust his schedule and make it be. So we were able to work around my part-time schedule and his full-time schedule, so that one of us was home with our girls all the time. And then on one day a week, my mother-in-law would watch the girls for a couple hours in the morning. And then that was it. Just me, my husband, my mother-in-law. Maybe every once in a while, if we were in a pinch, we would have a friend or a family member watch them. I loved that. I loved working part-time. I was in a good place that I just loved it. And I felt like I had the best of both worlds. I felt like I had the joys of being with my girls most of the days, but I just got a couple days where I was out and about and doing what I really, really enjoyed doing. And so that lasted a couple years. And then when my daughters were maybe like two and 3-ish, my husband, he was not loving, to put it mildly, he was not loving working retail. Long story short, he ended up going to what is essentially like a trade school, but we were in Southern California at the time. It was in Northern California. So he was away for a couple months, and that meant that he wasn't going to be working. So I needed to pick up work. So I was working multiple part-time jobs to make it be a full-time job. And we figured that during the summer, my mother-in-law could watch the girls because she worked in the school system. And so she was, they have summers off. So she was able to watch them during the summer. But there was going to be a 10-week time frame that we had nobody to watch the girls. And so they were going to have to go to daycare. I was okay with it only because it was an in-home daycare, so I felt a little bit more safe, and it was from people that we were good friends with. They sent their kids there and had a really great experience. They personally knew the family, and so I had more trust in that. Even though I still didn't love the situation. I knew it was only going to be a couple weeks. It was really hard though. It was a hard transition for my oldest one. She had just turned 3. Her dad is gone, up in school, and so he's gone, and now she's having to go to this daycare. She was potty training, and it was a rough. The first month was awful. It was just awful. We kind of adjusted and acclimated after that, and then after those 10 weeks, we they thankfully never had to go back. And if I'm saying this and you have your children in daycare, this is not to like shame or anything like that. I just personally never felt comfortable with it. Some people are completely fine with it, and that's fine. I hated that thought of it. And so it was really hard for me. And also I just was made to kind of feel like a bad mom, honestly, which I didn't really like that either. It was kind of implied. I didn't really love that experience. And so my husband is finally finished. So we are kind of determining, what do we want to do? He was going to be getting a job, and I wanted to cut back to working part-time. I did not want to work full-time, but with his new job, his new career, he was going to have to be working Monday through Friday. Our hours were going to be overlapping. So we had, and my mother-in-law she was working too. So there was nobody that would be able to help us with the girls. They were going to have to be in daycare because we still couldn't afford for me to be home at this point. And again, at this point, that's not really even what I wanted. I still wanted to work part-time, but for me to work part-time to pay for daycare, it just financially wasn't going to make sense. Plus we had debt that we wanted to get out of. We wanted to eventually buy a house. So, and my family, even though it's dispersed all over the country, most of the family is back on the East Coast. And I was missing them. Were debating about what to do, and we eventually realized that it was time to move back. For me, move back. For him, move. He's from California, and all his family is in California. So it was a really hard decision. Not one that we really made lightly, but at the end of the day, we knew that this would be the best benefit. We would be able to eventually buy a house. My mom would be able to help with the girls. This was just the best decision to make. After we moved here, my husband got a job right away, but it ended up being that the job was like 6 hours away. So he was gone during the week and at home on the weekends. And so I was not working yet. We came over here kind of like on a wing and a prayer. Neither of us had jobs when we moved over here. So he thankfully was able to get one really quickly right away. He's told me, why don't you just stay home for a little bit? You've been working the past year and full-time. I had been working full-time for almost a full year, commuting to Los Angeles and all that lovely traffic and everything. And so he was like, you need a break. Don't look for a job yet. We'll be fine. But me, I was just like, no, like we have to get our bills paid. And like, we just had made dumb financial choices back, prior, and we just needed to get our bills paid off and save up and buy a house. So it had been about 2 months at this point since we had moved. He's working, gone on the weekdays, home on the weekends. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and it was lovely. Like it was great. I loved it, but I knew it was not going to be long-term. I knew it was just going to be temporary. And so out of the blue, this person calls me and was like, hey, I noticed your resume online. I was like, I had a resume online? Okay. And it was just supposed to be a temporary job that turned into a permanent job. And I was there at that building for a couple years. In the meantime, I get pregnant with Lola about a year after we moved, had been back. We're living with my parents, trying to pay off debt, trying to save for a house. We have 2 little kids and a third one on the way. About the time I'm pregnant with Lola, she's 7 now, just for point of reference. My other 2 are 3 and 4, and I'm pregnant with my third. I just was like, oh, I really don't want to come back to work. Something started stirring in me. We still weren't at the point though that we would be able to afford that. He was still very early in his new career, and it takes time to build up, and starting at entry level, it was not sustainable for us. When I went back to work after Lola, ever since then, this was 2016, I was just like, oh my goodness, I want to hopefully stay home one day soon. And that's when I began my planning. Ever since like college, I've been able to, okay, here's my goal. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to work hard for it and I'm going to achieve it. And I was able to do that. So I was like, okay, great. Here's my goal. I want to stay home. My husband was on board. He had been wanting me to stay home for a while too. I mean, he supported me working, but he also supported me staying home. So finally, as my heart is starting to change, I'm like, here's my goal. We need to pay off this, we need to have this much, and this will take this long, and then it'll be ready to go, and then I can stay home. But, you know, life does not always work like that, and it sure didn't. Fast forward 7 years later, almost 7 years of praying and trying to do it on my own terms, it just was not working. It was not working. We had setback after setback after setback. And finally, about a year before I quit, I just said, you know what, God, I am not doing this anymore. I'm taking my hands off of it. You are in control. I can't, because every time I try to say, this is when I'm quitting and doing it on my terms and on my timeline, something happens. So if you want me to stay home, you gave me this desire. This is the strong desire in my heart. I'm going to just leave it up to you and the timeline that you want, rather than just trying to take control. Oh my goodness, my door just opened with the wind and it's locked. How did it open? Oh my goodness, so weird. Never know what's going to happen in any of my videos. So that's what happened. My husband, long story short, he had several jobs. He had work injuries. He had there's been a slew, a whole lifetime of stuff that has happened just in a short time period of a couple years. And I just gave it up to the Lord and said, this is my desire. Please fulfill it. And if not, then give me the peace to continue to work. So I've been home for a little over a year. And I just want to say, I do not think that one is holier than the other. I feel like there's a lot of shaming on either end. Shaming like, hey, all women should be stay-at-home moms and, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, you've heard that. Or, why, you know, you're just a stay-at-home mom. Like, why aren't you working and contributing? And there's that whole argument too. And I don't subscribe to any of that. I'm not going to have a one-sided argument. Circumstances are different for every single family, and it's not always cut and dry, black and white. And so I never subscribe to, you know, one or the other thinking. I'm usually pretty much in the middle. I'm a millennial. I'm right in the middle of millennial. I'm not on the older side. And I'm definitely not on the younger side, closer to Gen Z. I'm tried and true millennial, and all of our parents were baby boomers, and most of their parents, I feel like that was the last generation, like our grandparents, of where most women stayed home and it was normal. And all of our moms, you know, people are my age, all of our moms, most of them worked. My mom worked on and off throughout the years. She was a teacher. She only ever worked part-time, and it was at the school I went to, so she was always there. But most moms worked, and it all has to do with feminism and all that. And I'm not going to get into that too much, but just to say there's parts of feminism. I think people equate feminism like it's all one thing, and that's not true. There's first waves feminism, which brought about the right to vote, the right to own land, the right to have a bank account. All of those things are great. But, you know, as it progressed on, and I don't want to get into the nuance of all of that, but it has become that women almost need to work nowadays. It has been so ingrained in us, again, as people of my generation, that you were modeled, you know, people working all the time, people on TV shows and movies, the women were working. It was just like, okay, you're going to go to college. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm speaking in generalities. Obviously, there's going to be some people who are like, no, my parents encouraged me to be a stay-at-home mom. But for the most part, this is what we have been fed our whole lives. Our whole lives, we've been fed working. Like, that's just normal. You get up, you grow up, you work, you put your kids either in daycare or someone watches them, and then they go off to school, and that is just normal. We literally do not even know any better. People want to villainize working moms, and they're just power hungry and money hungry. And I've been listening to a podcast by Suzanne Venker. I'll put her YouTube channel below. She doesn't villainize women who are working. Like, she is an advocate for stay-at-home moms and staying home with your kids, but she also gets like, this is what we've been taught as normal and acceptable, and this is just what you do. I just think a lot of them are doing what they think is supposed to happen. Anyway, so fast forward 1 year, and what are my thoughts? Do I want to go back to work? Do I enjoy staying home? What am I thinking? I love it. I absolutely love being a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife. It is my joy, my purpose. It's just something I can't even describe it, like inside of me, that fulfills my heart. And I don't want to make it be all about me. I'll get to that in just a second. But just from a personal experience, like, I've never been happier. I would rather be nervous about money and finances, which is my huge thing for me, than have to go back. I'm less tired, even despite having a baby, more rested than I've been in years. My patience has gone way up. I'm not tired all the time. I remember after I would work every Thursday, I was just dead. Me and my husband just would be dead. Poor guy. He still is working, so he's still in that and feels it. But I am able to, since I'm home more, I am able to make sure other things on that end are taken care of so that he doesn't have to, and he can hopefully come home and relax a little bit. He's usually doing some kind of project though after work. So me not being exhausted, I have more energy to give to my kids, and they in turn benefit from it. So it's not just about me and my wants and everything, it's for the whole family. I look at staying home as my job. Not that I have to be militant about it or anything like that, but look at it as, no, my job is to make my home peaceful. So I take that as my job and my joy, and I try to do it with joy. Do I love doing laundry and putting it away all the time? Absolutely not. But I have the privilege of being blessed to stay home, and I will never, ever complain about it. Never. I've been there. I know what it's like to work. I know what it's like to be away and kiss your babies and not see them all day. And I didn't think I was gonna get emotional. And just like, you know, even though we only had a short daycare experience, a couple, just, you know, their whole day was gone, and like, I didn't get to hear about it or see pictures. And thankfully it was most of their life. It was only 2 months of their entire life, so it's not that big of a deal. But like, even when my mom was watching them, I was able to hear stories and see pictures and, you know, get that sweetness secondhand. And I'm so glad she was able to watch them and experience that. And that bond is great. Now she has a great bond with them because she was able to spend so much time with them. And so no amount of housework or babies crying or kids being home and all of that nothing is going to ever make me not appreciate where I am right now. I've never looked back. I will not look back. I am so grateful for where I get to be, that I get to be here with my children, serving my kids, serving my husband, and serving. We think we live in such a society today where we're looking for, well, what's this man gonna do for me, right? It's such a selfish society. Not everybody, but a lot of people are. And there's nothing wrong with being a servant, right? And my husband serves us back equally as well. We just serve in different ways. That's the way it's supposed to be. We are not meant as humans to just receive. We're not meant to be that. And so it brings me joy to have a house that I want it to be one of peace, one of comfort, one of not clutter all around and chaos, where we can be truly at home. And so that is how I have been looking at it. And I plan on, over the next years, you know, continuing that and trying to make that my goal, is to serve them well and to train my girls that, you know, if they want to be stay-at-home moms, that's great. If they want to work, that's fine too. But to look at it from, you know, your husband is not your burden, your children are not your burden, that your house is not your burden. It's not like work is your only thing and everything else is just like, ugh, you know, rolling your eyes at. I want it to be, no, this is the focus. If you're a working mom outside the home and you just love it and enjoy it, I really hope that you will consider, not that you have to quit working or anything like that, but maybe consider cutting to part-time if you're able to, or finding a work from home position. If you're a working mom and your desire is to be home, but it just has not happened yet, I get it. I've been there. I've been there where year after year, it's just like, when is this ever going to happen? Just continue to pray. If you're a Christian, please continue to pray. The Lord, it's in the Lord's timing. Try not to take control. Give him the control. Put it on his timetable. And if that's a desire of your heart, I pray it will work out. If it's your husband who's saying, no, I don't want you to stay home, I want you to keep working, pray the Lord will change his heart and soften his heart. And if you are a stay-at-home mom, especially one of little kids, please remember, I know those days can be crazy, but remember, you are doing such important eternal work that you will not even get to see all the rewards and all the fruit of your labor, but you are doing such important work. Kids need their moms, and don't forget that. It may be tempting to think, what would I be outside of being a wife and a mother? But try to remember, you're doing a great job. There's always, you could always later on get a job and do that later on when they're older, but just remember, it's important what you're doing. You will just continue to cling to that. I get to be home with my kids. It is a privilege. It's an honor. Yeah, it may be a sacrifice of you don't have work full time, but it's a privilege. It really is. And so when you look at it as like a privilege mindset more than a victim mindset of we sacrifice and look at all we don't have so that I can stay home, try to flip that around and look at it as, this is such a blessing that I get to do this. And when you look at it that way, it really will help your mindset. That one lady I was saying, Suzanne Venker, I'll leave her YouTube channel down below if you want to hear more. She was saying that women can do it all. We can do it all. We can have the career, we can have the house, the husband, the family. We can do it all. We just can't do it all at the same time. There's going to be years where you need to focus on your kids. There's going to be years where you can have that. You can focus on your work and your career and having that. But it can't always be doing them both really well, 100% at the same time. You just cannot. You can't do it. And again, this is not to shame anybody. I've been there. I did it. I worked full-time. I worked part-time. I've done them. And I could not do everything 100%. I could not give 100% to my kids because I physically wasn't there. So just something to keep in mind. I hope that this was an encouragement to you. I've been where you are. I know how you feel. And if not, then I pray that you'll be able to speak with someone who does know how you feel and has walked where you are, and that will just be an ear to listen to and an encouragement if you are in a discouraged season in your life. Let me know in the comments. Please keep it civil. Again, we're not tolerating mom shaming and mom bashing, and we're not one against another. But if you have encouragement that you want to post in the comments, please leave that down below for some other moms who might need it today. I hope you have a good one. Take care.